All right, hello. This is going to be Group Four's Alpine Village Clinic Cash Budgeting Case Study, and this is going to be by Christian Chicoyo, Angiag, Diana Medina, Aisha Malik, and Lorenzo Valbuena. So yes. So the table of contents. So this is going to be pretty much what the slides are going to be consistent of, and this is going to be pretty much the topic. So clearly state and explain the underlying case issue and problem to be resolved. Describe and explain relevant health, economic, finance, and historical background of the case issue or problem. Uh, Argue for and against potential solutions. Describe the solutions and its actual or likely implementation, explain the results of the solution and relate them to the original problems and issues. And F, explain how this solution is viewed by relevant interest groups in the company. So for introduction, this source material presents a financial case study centered on the Alpine Village Clinic, a small medical facility in Colorado specializing in injuries sustained while skiing, whose business is highly seasonal. The primary task is for Dr. Amanda Cook's financial assistant to prepare a detailed cash budget for the first half of 2010s to manage cash and estimate the clinic's need for short-term financing. This analysis was urgently required because the clinic's primary lender, First Bank of Aspen, informed them of a forecasted reduction in available funds for commercial loans. The cash budget must address complex issues, including calculating the necessary size of a line of credit and incorporating interest on borrowing or earning on surplus into the monthly forecast. So yes. So first, we're going to be talking about clearly state and explain the underlying case issue and problems to be resolved. So these are going to be what the problems and issues might be. So this is what was presented. The case study centers on the Alpine Village Clinic, a small, highly seasonal walk-in medical facility specializing in injuries sustained while skiing in Alpine Village, Colorado, and it is owned by the doctors. So the urgency for financial analysis arose when Dr. Cook was notified by First Bank, the clinic was primary lender, that there was a forecasted reduction in funds available for commercial loans. This necessitated a part-time MBA student assisting the clinic the developing and uh, to develop a comprehensive cash budget to estimate the required size of the clinic's line of credit borrowing requirements for the first half of 2010. Given that the vast majority of patients' volume occurred during the ski season, which is December through March, the clinic relies on the line of credit, a short-term loan to meet its temporary seasonal cash needs. Continuing, the budget must accurately forecast cash collections, which are subjected to delay. 60% of billings are collected 2 months after the billing month and must maintain a daily compensating cash balance of 50K. So crucially, the model must be modified to include the calculations of interest paid online, of credit drawdowns at 8% compounded monthly, or interest earned on cash surpluses at 4% compounded monthly. So yes, then we're going to be continuing. The next slide is going to be explaining relevant health, economic, finance, and historical background of the case, issue, or problem. So this is pretty much going to be like the background given by the case study. So, as stated before, the Alpine Village Clinic is a small specialized walk-in medical facility focusing on treating skiing injuries near Alpine Village, Colorado. And historically, its business has been defined by extreme seasonality, with a majority of patients' volume occurring from December through March. However, this historic pattern is beginning to change as the area now attracts a sizable number of summer visitors, making year-round operations financially more attractive. The urgency for a detailed financial analysis was triggered by Dr. Ku's when Dr. Cook was informed by First Bank of Aspen, the clinic's primary lender, about a forecasted reduction in funds available for commercial loans. So consequently, the central problem is resolving the clinic's short-term financing need by preparing a cash budget to estimate the required size of its line of credit borrowing requirements for the first half of 2010. This financial forecasting is complex because cash flow is heavily influenced by Collection lags at 60% of billing are assumed to be collected 2 months after the billing month. So crucially, the final cash budget must also calculate the cost of financing, including interest on line of credit, downs at 8% compounded monthly, and must ensure that the clinic maintains a compensating cash balance of 50K each day. So yeah.
So on this slide, we're looking at the main options the Alpine Village Clinic has to manage its cash flow challenges. So here are a few potential solutions to address the cash flow. The first step is building a detailed cash budget. Because the clinic's revenue is seasonal and patients' payments are delayed, sometimes up to 2 months, forecasting becomes essential. The second option is securing or adjusting the line of credit with First Bank. This would allow the clinic to cover temporary cash shortages during low revenue months while still meeting payroll, supply costs, and other essential expenses. We also need to account for interest, either interest paid when borrowing or interest earned when we have surplus funds. Including these financial costs makes the model a lot more realistic. Here are a few arguments for the potential solutions given. First of all, there are clear benefits to using a cash budget combined with a line of credit. First, this approach directly addresses the seasonality of the clinic. Most patients do come in during the winter skiing season, and so spending and revenue don't align month to month. Secondly, because insurance payments are delayed, the clinic often doesn't receive the cash from services until months later, so having borrowing capacity fills that timing gap. Third, creating a detailed cash plan supports transparency when dealing with the bank, especially now that the bank is reducing available commercial loan funds. Now that we went over all the possible arguments for these potential solutions, there are always some drawbacks to consider. The first drawback is cost. Borrowing on a line of credit requires paying interest, and if borrowing that becomes frequent, the expenses can really rack up. Another risk is dependency. If the clinic relies too heavily on borrowed funds, it could become vulnerable, especially if the bank reduces lending further in the future. Forecasting is another challenge. If patient volume is lower than expected or collections fall behind schedule, the budget and borrowing plan could become inaccurate.
So next, we're going to talk about solution and its actual or likely implementation. First of all, I think that the clinic should absolutely apply for a line of credit. I say this because even though revenue are high in winter, the collection lag means that cat doesn't arrive until March or April. Meanwhile, they have high labor costs in January and February and a massive capital expenditure of about $125,000 for X-ray in February. Also, the maximum cumulative deficit occurred at the end of February. The clinic needs $99,000 to cover expenses and maintain the $50,000 compensating balance. So a credit line of about $110,000 to $120,000 could provide a safety margin for unforeseen expenses. Another suggestion would be to get rid of the $50,000 compensating balance because once the loan is paid off in September, the bank no longer requires it. And also, after they have a LOC, they can reduce cash on hand to a minimal operational level. For example, $10,000 for petty cash and immediate bills, and use the LOC for timing difference, minimizing idle cash and paying down debt faster. Given their monthly cash outflow is about $200,000 for payroll, rent, G&A, a target of $25,000 to $35,000 cash might be sufficient. It can fill up the It can free up the remaining cash for distribution to partner or investment. Next, we also have to account for bad debt. Currently, the budget assumes 100% of billings are collected, but we should adjust the collection percentage to some to less than 100%. For example, 20% immediately, 20% after 30 days, and 55% after 60 days. This implies a 5% bad debt rate. It reduces total cash inflow and provides a more realistic view of the surplus. Finally, they need to manage the surplus. The budget shows a massive surpluses in April and May. This cash sit idle, earning 0% in a checking account, are very low interest. Therefore, they should prioritize clearing the 8% debt, which happens in March and April. Place the excess in money market fund or short-term CDs to earn the 4% rate mentioned in the text. Excess cash not needed for the low season should be distributed to Dr. Peterson and Dr. Cook.
So now that we've identified the solution and how it will be implemented, I'm going to explain the expected results and how this solution directly addresses the clinic's original financial problems. So the clinic successfully stabilizes cash flow during seasonal downturns. The LOC covers the February through March cash deficit, which is an estimated $99,000, and ensures payroll, supplies, and lease payments continue smoothly. The timing gap between revenues and collections is eliminated as a major financial threat, and even though billings peak in winter, collections arrive up to 60 days later. The LOC bridges this delay and prevents liquidity shortages. So the February capital expenditure becomes financially manageable, and the $125,000 X-ray machine purchase is no longer straining the daily operations because borrowing can temporarily support the outflow. The clinic avoids operational disruption and also maintains service levels. So in this case, there's no staff reductions, delayed payments, or postponed purchases are needed during low revenue months. So next, we're going to get into how the solution addresses the clinic's core issues. So for starters, it fixes the seasonal liquidity challenges. So the LOC, in other words, provides flexible short-term financing, which means that now it can allow the clinic to operate sustainably despite large fluctuations in patient volume. Another way the solution addresses the clinic's core issues is that it improves accuracy of financial planning, meaning that adding interest on borrowings and earnings on surpluses gives a more realistic cash budget, helping Dr. Cook make more informed decisions. Thirdly, it strengthens the financial stability long term. As the clinic repays the term loan from post-September 2010, they can reduce excess idle cash and optimize cash reserves, freeing funds for partners or reinvestment. And lastly, the solution addresses the clinic's core issues by reducing the risk from billing uncertainty. So sensitivity analysis, the sensitivity analysis helps predict how much cushion the clinic needs, making the LOC safer and more defensible to the first bank.
This part of the presentation breaks down how the clinic's new financial plan affects each of our key stakeholders. Even though the plan focuses on cash flow, each group feels the impact in a different way that really matters to them. starting with the clinic physicians and owners, which are Dr. Peterson and Dr. Cook. For them, the biggest benefit is having predictable cash flow. They don't have to stress about running out of money during slow months or putting off important purchases. With better forecasting and a line of credit they can rely on, they're able to plan payroll, keep up with equipment needs like the new X-ray machine, and stay prepared for seasonal ups and downs. This takes a lot of pressure off and it lets them focus on what they care about most, which is patient care and running the clinic, instead of constantly having to worry about the finances. Now, moving on to the staff. The nurses, front desk team, and seasonal workers feel the changes in a very different way. Knowing their paychecks will arrive on time gives them real financial stability. In a clinic where demand can shift with the seasons, that kind of consistency matters. When employees don't have to worry about late pay or unexpected cuts, the work environment becomes more positive and supportive. It also helps the clinic retain skilled workers, which is especially important during the busy ski months when the entire team needs to perform at its best. Moving on to look at our external partners. For the bank, having clear and reliable financial forecasting makes the clinic a more trustworthy borrower. That helps keep the line of credit secure and available. Vendors also benefit because they know they'll be paid on time. That builds trust, keeping supplies flowing smoothly, and strengthens those long-term relationships that make daily operations run without unnecessary delays. And finally, the patients. The purpose of managing cash flow effectively is to keep patient care running without interruptions. When the clinic isn't dealing with cash shortages, services like appointments, treatments, and urgent care remain available as usual. For a seasonal clinic like Alpine Village, maintaining steady operations is essential. It helps ensure that the community can access the care they need throughout the year. Overall, it is important to have a financial plan that supports every part of the clinic, including the leadership, the staff, the partners, and most importantly, the patients.